I have had quite a few people request that I review this brand of earphones, but I've never really gotten down to it. Today I have Soundpeats to thank for this review being possible. Thank you Soundpeats for sending me this review unit. These are the Soundpeats Air 3 Pro. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. This set of earphones is sadly not yet available on Amazon India or Flipkart, but Soundpeats does plan on launching this set of earphones sometime soon in India, and judging by how these perform, I do hope it's sooner than later. But what you can do is buy these off of their official website. So let's jump straight in with this review and their build. The unboxing experience of this is pretty neat with a very nicely made outer box, and the inside is also padded with some soft foam to keep the contents of the box protected. You get the case with the earphones in them, the earphones having medium tips on, and you do get a small and large ear tip as well. You get a USB-A to USB-C charging cable and the literature. The case has a very neatly done matte finish which is soft to the touch. It does have a rubbery feel, ensuring you have a good grip on the case so it shouldn't slip easily. I don't think this will show scratches anytime soon, but may pick up soft thumbnail scratches in time. The top of the case's lid has a very professionally engraved brand name on it. Most companies just slap a sticker on, so it's nice to see such fine work done on these. The bottom of the case has a USB-C connector for charging up, and the rear of the case has a little sync and reset button. The middle of the case has a glossy band going around it, and the middle of it has a notification light which glows green, yellow and red to show that the battery is charged up to 100 to 50, 49 to 10 and below 10% respectively. The lid is also spring-loaded from a point and only when it closes, which does have a nice soft clasping sound. Upon opening the case, the earphones greet you with the Soundpeats logo facing you. There is a L and R engraving in the case to show you where to place the earphones. There was no need to do something like this, but small details like these I do appreciate. The earphones are a bit slippery to extract from the case, so I plucked them out by pinching the ear tips. The branding logo on the earphones are beautifully finished with a matte surrounding and the S being a chrome finish. This badge also serves as the touch area on the earphones. The ear tips are a nice soft silicone, but not the softest I've used in the recent past. They are soft enough to enjoy wearing these for longer listening sessions once you figure out which ear tip is for you. These do come with an ingress level of IPX4, but considering how exposed the connection points are below the earbud stem, I have a feeling these may have charging issues if you don't wipe these down after any gym sessions. Sweat can be corrosive towards exposed areas like this. These come with a Qualcomm QCC3046 chip, which means you get Bluetooth version 5.2, active noise cancelling and also voice assistant support. Soundpeats does also have an app you can use, but it seems rather limited compared to the other earphones I have reviewed recently. The app lets you control your volume. It does have EQ presets you can choose from, as well as a custom EQ which has 8 bands, which is a nice inclusion. You can toggle between the ANC mode, normal mode and transparency mode, and you also have a game mode which you can switch on to reduce latency to as low as 60 milliseconds. You also have the option to disable the single tap function, since these are quite sensitive to touch. I keep this on before going to bed so it doesn't register any false inputs. You can also upgrade the firmware of these earphones if there is an update. So this app isn't as detailed as other earphones, but doesn't get me too concerned because you can practically handle all the features these have via the touch controls, all except the EQ settings, that is. A single tap on the right earphone increases the volume, on the left it reduces it. 2 taps to play pause or answer and end calls on either earphone. 3 taps is the voice assistant on the right earbud, and on the left is game mode, which does have a voice prompt for when it's active or switched off. Pressing and holding for 1.5 seconds on the left earbud toggles between your ANC, transparency and normal modes, and the same on the right earbud skips to the next track or cuts an incoming call. Sadly, these do not support simultaneous pairing with multiple devices, but you can connect to different devices by switching your Bluetooth off on one and connecting these to another. Painful? Yes. It would have been nice if it could have done some sort of handover when you switch off the Bluetooth on one of your devices and it connects to the other available device. Perhaps Soundpeats can consider adding a feature like this in future iterations. Another feature this does not have is in-ear detection. So you don't get the auto pause and play for whenever you take the earphone out of your ear. Now this is not a deal breaker for me, but for you, this may just be important. Soundpeats claims that this can reduce noise up to 35 dB. Now, I think that's fairly possible considering they've used a hybrid ANC setup. These do a terrific job of cutting out droning noises like engines that are right out of my studio and also my fan motor noise. And a few soft voices do tend to come in from out of my room if somebody is speaking a bit loud. It does cut it down slightly, but it can bleed in ever so slightly. As I did mention, you can switch between ANC, transparency and normal mode through the app, and you can also toggle between these modes by pressing and holding for about 1.5 seconds on the left earbud. The combination of how well these isolate with their hybrid ANC makes these a perfect set of earphones to just switch the ANC on and enjoy a little peace and quiet if you don't want to listen to music. So with this hybrid ANC setup, these do come with two microphones. One of course is in the chamber and one is out. And these two microphones do also contribute towards their environmental noise cancelling for any of those phone calls you want to make. And honestly, there is only one way to see how good or bad you sound to your recipients.
So I'm calling from the usual busy street where I normally do these call tests from. So you have an idea of how well these earphones handle the environmental noise cancelling. Now there is a significant amount of traffic moving up and down on the street behind me, and there is some construction work going on as well. So these earphones will have a lot to battle. So right now I am on the camera audio, and I'll switch over to the Soundpeats Air 3 Pro right about now. So this will give you an idea of how well these handle their ENC. Now, of course, it is working with a lot right now. Now, judging how good or bad this is outside here, considering there is atmosphere noise with some wheels and all being blown in the wind, if you are indoors, this is bound to be slightly better. Now, one of the things I usually do whenever I'm doing any of these call tests is I switch between the ANC profiles, especially if it's got an active noise cancelling. So this does have ANC mode, it has the normal mode and transparency mode. But one thing I did realize is when I try and switch over between the three, for example, right now I'm in ANC mode and I'm trying to switch over to the normal mode and nothing happens. I try and switch over to the transparency mode and nothing happens. So I have noticed some earphones do not switch over whenever you are in some sort of, when you're in a phone call. So now some earphones do tend to make a slight shift over in their audio for the recipient in this situation, who is you, whenever the user switches from ANC mode to normal mode or transparency mode. Now since this is not happening while a call is going on, I'm going to cut this call and do another call with different modes. So we can see if there is a difference in sound with different modes. So now I'm speaking to you from the normal mode. So now from my perspective, I can hear a lot more of the vehicles coming in because right now it's like talking to you with my fingers in my ears. There is no active noise cancelling that's on right now. So this is how it will sound if I were talking to you in normal mode. And I'll switch over to the transparency mode right about now. So I can hear a lot of what's going on because this is a pass-through mode. So people who are talking, who are walking past, the honking, the car engines, everything is coming in now. Why I like to do this is because there are times when the AI does have a little more load on it to handle the ANC, transparency mode, and the environmental noise cancelling. So this should give you an idea as to how good or bad each one of these modes work, and generally how a phone call will sound to your recipient. So of course, the best person to decide whether this works for you or not is, of course, you. And I will see you back at the studio.
These come with 12mm dynamic drivers and they support SPC aptX and aptX adaptive codecs. On a volume front, these don't really amp as much as I'd like them to, but having said that, these don't really thin out too much or lose their roundedness even at lower volumes down to even 5%. I've noticed that most of the testing I do with other TWS earphones, I'm usually hovering around the 45 to 50% volume limit on my phone. But with these, I found that I was anywhere between 60, 65 and 70 to hit a sweet spot. Now going above 70% can get a bit uncomfortable. It is a little beyond what you should be listening to, and I wouldn't recommend listening to any audio of these above 70% if you want to preserve your hearing. Soundstage exists within a bubble in your head, but some tones can come at you from a little further out of these earphones. Or should I say, they give the illusion of coming at you from a little further out. The phantom channel does sit well centered, but to begin with, it was slightly off to one side. Eventually, I realized I was using the wrong size ear tip for my ears, so I switched them out. And after that, the phantom channel did sit true dead well center as it should. Your music, audio or movie consumption comes at you from a horizontal plane, and the separation between left and right channel is quite good. Now, speaking about separation when it comes to its imaging, it is refined in its delivery with these earphones. These come very close to being pin sharp, but stay away from being too brittle sounding. These make it fairly easy to zone into the musician or even the vocalist or even on dialogue in any movie whenever you're consuming any media. High frequencies are soft, defined and precise in their detail. They don't hurt the ear despite having to crank these up a bit in volume to enjoy them a little bit more. This range comes through very cleanly, especially if you're listening to acoustic music. There is a certain amount of warmth these give in this range which I wouldn't have normally expected off of earphones that cost as much as these. They give a tone which kicks off a feeling of nostalgia for some reason. It reminds me a bit of listening to an old cassette tape on my dad's system. Listening to Lady by the Sea by Stephen Sanchez, a song I've never heard before, evokes a feeling of familiarity as if I've known this song for years. The high frequencies from his guitar are carried over to you with as much enjoyment as Stephen most likely had while recording his track. Mid frequencies can tend to sound a little thinned out, especially if you're listening to female vocals. But that would also depend on what recording you're listening to. Male vocals do sound a bit distant, but not as recessed as you'd expect them to, considering the mids are pulled back a bit. Listening to Adele's Easy on Me, she does sound a bit on the nasal side and her voice does seem like it's missing the body that it usually has. But when you switch over to Seether's Careless Whisper, Sean Morgan's vocals are moved a little further back in the stage instead of sounding recessed. Luckily, however, you do get the chance to play around with EQs and a manual EQ as well, which I will talk about. Considering that these come with a 12mm dynamic driver, you'd think that they'd have earth-shattering bass. Thankfully, however, they are a lot more composed with their bass delivery than you'd think. Low frequencies have good energy but aren't quite as defined as I'd hoped they'd be. It's the sub-low frequencies where these show a little more definition and seem to want more music, which would make this range come out to play. Listening to Justin Timberlake's Say Something featuring Chris Stapleton, the sub-bass has way more presence than any bass lines in this track. This can be tweaked and changed if you're open to using an EQ. And speaking about EQs, I have tested these on a completely flat profile to give you what they'd sound like, most likely out of the box. But the EQ presets that are available on the app, well, you get 9 of them, and each of them do add a slightly different color to the tonality of how these earphones sound. And the EQs that you get are Soundpeats Classic. It's a more natural sounding EQ compared to the others. It's closer to a flat sounding setting. Bass Boost does as it says and cranks up the lower frequencies, making the bass and sub-bass frequencies a lot more exaggerated. Bass Reduction thins out the audio. I think this would work well with audiobooks. Electronic cranks up highs and lows and dips mids way down to the Mariana Trench, making vocals sound very thin and hollow. Rock and Roll cranks up trebles and upper mids, making sibilance a living nightmare. Folk widens up the stage a bit and becomes very shouty for vocals and sounds as if the vocalist has their hand cupped in front of their mouth. Treble enhancement tweaks the highs while keeping the mids and bass flat. This could work for audiobooks too, or for hearing higher tones if you want a little more sharpness or detail in this range. With pop, there seems to be a slight amping drop compared to the last EQ mode, but makes vocals come through significantly clearer and can be an enjoyable preset to listen to if you listen to older tunes. And classical music sounds a little fuller compared to the pop EQ with slightly better amping. Then you also get a custom EQ as well with 8 bands, which is terrific to see in a set of earphones in this price range. It's worthwhile taking your time to play around with these to see what kind of sound you like, and you'll most probably prefer using this than an inbuilt preset over time. So to sum up, when it comes to their build, these are superbly made. In fact, I really like the overall finish of these. The whole matte experience usually I prefer to having glossy cases because those are plagued with getting scratched within a few hours of just unboxing it. And this one, in fact, has a very different finish. So I have reviewed a set of JBLs recently, which is, it does have a matte finish, but it still feels very plasticky. So if that gets scratched, it's the color tone of it kind of changes. This case, on the other hand, has a rubbery matte finish. So it's very similar to the LG Tone FP5 that I reviewed very recently. It's very grippy and it does have a very premium feel to it. That little engraving on the top for Soundpeats is done really beautifully. I wouldn't have expected this on a set of earphones that cost as much as these. If you get something at maybe twice the price or 4 times the price, you can expect this kind of finish. But kudos to the guys at Soundpeats for ensuring that they have this terrific build quality. The one thing that bothers me about this earphones build is those little exposed points at the bottom of the earphones, because normally on other earphones these points are slightly recessed, or there is some material around it which would ensure that your sweat beads don't go near it. It would just about miss it. But this is sort of a little too exposed, so if you are planning on picking these up, it is worthwhile wiping these down after a workout or if you've gone for a run, because if any sweat does contact that or sticks with it, it can get corroded sooner than later. And if one of those connecting points gets corroded, it's not going to charge up one of the earphones, which you're not going to be able to use in any case. When it comes to the features, I'd say these don't really fall short, because it's got whatever you need. The only issue I'd say is the app is not as expansive as it should be. You don't feel it so much because Soundpeats has made sure that you can access everything you want to via the touch panels on either side. The only thing you can't access are the EQ modes, so for that you do have to go into the app. But it's very neat that they've included the expansive EQ settings that you do get within the app, as well as the custom setting. The other weird thing is that it doesn't have in-ear detection. I genuinely thought that this would be standardized by now with a lot of earphones, but I do have another set of earphones that are a little more expensive. I think those are the JBLs 230NCs. They don't have in-ear detection themselves. It's no biggie for me, but there are some people out there who are very particular about that, who want their music to pause and play if they want to take the earphone out while they're conversing with somebody and put it back in. So that's something to keep in mind before considering buying these. The hybrid ANC works really terrifically with these. Now Soundpeats has chosen the hybrid setup, which does have its benefits, and I think it does do a pretty good job. It is pretty good at eliminating a lot of the traffic noises and the fan motor which is in my studio. I haven't really had any complaints with it. Now the isolation itself is also quite good, so while I was testing these out and writing my script, I couldn't really hear my keyboard too much. It is a mechanical keyboard, and the thing is, ANC normally cuts out droning noises, but I think the isolation helped with cutting out the mechanical noise. So the isolation is also pretty good if you manage to put on the correct size ear tip. Now when it comes to the sound, I don't really have any issues with these earphones, except for the fact that the bass region does sound a bit recessed. It's not as punchy as it could be. The sub bass region is healthy. Now I would have preferred if it was in the bass segment and a little less in the sub bass, but I'm just nitpicking. Now end of the day, you can tune it very slightly with the manual EQ and of course all the custom presets. Now the thing is, this set of earphones did feel very warm and welcoming. I don't usually get that off of earphones, especially if they're truly wireless ones, but this set did have a warm sounding tone to it. Like I said, it gave me a very nostalgic feeling, which I wasn't expecting from them, but they are truly enjoyable to listen to, whether you listen to new music, older music, or even absorbing some content via your screen if you're watching movies and so on. And that sub-low accentuation makes movie watching fun if you enjoy watching action movies, because the explosions sound like explosions. So would I recommend these to you? Well, they're not for everybody, obviously. The way I've described the sound, I guess you'll have to figure out if these are suited for you or not. But I think these are good all-rounders. They work well for music and for movies. You can pick them up. In fact, let me just tell you about the price. At the time of recording this video, these are going for $59.99. Which goes for around 4,000. If you convert it as per today's rate, it converts to 4,800 rupees here in India. Now if you do want to buy this off of their official website, you can. They are not selling this yet via Amazon India and Flipkart. If you are buying them on their official website, I guess you'll have to deal with the usual rigmarole of ordering something from outside, but perhaps it does make sense to wait and see if these are going to come into the market sometime soon. So if you stay this long, I do presume you like the content on my channel, and if you would like to support it, I'm sure you know exactly how to. And of course, thank you for tuning into Paul's POV for some sound advice. This video review was produced thanks to a review sample provided by Soundpeats, which is a working sample ready for sale in the global market. Soundpeats was not given any editorial control or early access to this review. They are watching it at the same time you are, and no party was offered any compensation for the creation of this review. All thoughts and opinions belong to the creator of this channel.